Okay, so we're in Taipa of Macau, and we're going to be talking about domestic helpers. So there was a question about domestic helpers and about what it's like to work here in Macau. I'll try to answer that question while giving you a view of the city as well. Go check out the room. Okay, I'm the content creator for this channel. If you like what I'm doing, just subscribe and hit the like button. Okay, so we're going to answer a question. I think someone asked me, what it's like for a domestic helper to work here. I'll try to answer the best I can, and we'll just give you some views of the city. So a lot of domestic helpers, they come from usually Philippines, Indonesia. I think they also come from Myanmar. Can come even from mainland China occasionally, but I think that the visas are kind of difficult. So, but most of them are usually from Philippines or Indonesia. We'll just kind of show you this little park while we're talking about this topic. I think that the salaries are, I think that legally, I think it's something like, I'll translate it into American dollars. Well, in Pataka, in Macau money, you just look it up in Macau money to your local currency. But it's, I believe it's 3,500 or maybe 4,000 MOP, which is maybe like about 400 to 450 American dollars, something like that. Something like that. It's not very high. The salaries are pretty low. Maybe around 500 American dollars, I think, about 4,000 MOP. Yeah, I think that's about right. 4,000 MOP, about 500 American dollars. And basically they work pretty much every single day. They get Sundays off, and then they usually have a curfew. So usually they have to be back into their home in the evening. So usually on Sunday you might see them around, but I don't know where they really go in Macau. Hong Kong has a much larger visible population that you can see on Sundays, and on Sundays they usually go to all the parks. But in Macau, I'm not really sure where they go exactly. Probably the parks too. I think they go up to Three Lantern District. See some Indonesians there. I don't know where the but Macau or Hong Kong, they're everywhere. I mean, they're really visible. On Sunday they basically inhabit pretty much all the public spaces, and they kind of turn them into their own living rooms because of the fact that they live with an employer almost 24/7, so they need that one day off just to interact with somebody else, right? So they basically work pretty much all the time. Usually they're stay in. I think in Hong Kong they're by law they're stay in. I think that Macau they could vary a little bit. You could have stay in. Maybe we'll walk up to the park and kind of talk more about it. But they could be stay in or stay out. And I think they might compensate, but I don't think they compensate very much. So I think even if they are stay out, they usually would stay in some dormitory with 10 or 12 other Filipinos or Indonesians or both, as far as I know. So I don't think they're never gonna have their own space. What are the conditions? Well, basically I think I'm gonna keep talking while I go down. So we're gonna just navigate downward, and I think their conditions aren't really that. I'll tell you in a minute. And we're gonna add on a second one. There's like a little rotunda, little circular thing, so you can walk through that and then walk through the Cotai strip as well. And then they got all this kind of cool stuff here for anyways, thought I'd add that on there. And now we're just gonna go on down. So this kind of gives you a little view. If you keep following this video, I'm probably gonna walk down this little thing. Sometimes I can go almost anywhere, so once I go somewhere else, make up a different decision. Okay, so we just came off of this, and we'll tell you more about domestic helpers. So yeah, the pay, I'm really not sure how they survive on that pay, but I think they basically are in the house the whole time, and then a lot of them will send money back. I kind of have a feeling like in the Philippines or Indonesia, the pay can't be lower. So I think they must just want to have the experience of living abroad. I'm not entirely sure, but I think I'm going to guess that probably the trade-off is that maybe where they're living in the Philippines or Indonesia is maybe they live without really, I don't know, they must be just really nice to live in a nice apartment with an employer, but a lot of times, sometimes they live in situations that are far from ideal. So sometimes, I've heard of them like living in a closet, or just something kind of crazy. you know, or like they might not have a spare bedroom for the helper. I think there's all kinds of different situations, and I'm not really sure all of them. And I think that legally it's also a little bit difficult for a lot of helpers as well, because a lot of times, I think my understanding of it is that like they have to complete their contract. So maybe they have a really bad employer, and I've heard some pretty bad ones. And then I'll tell you about that in a minute as well. So I think they feel obligated to complete their contract, because if they don't, you know, they have to find another one immediately. I don't know if they can really change either. I think they have to just stick it out, I think. But sometimes they get some really awful ones, and then they can try to legally get some recourse. But I think like a country like the Philippines will often ban them if they don't complete their contract. They won't let them travel abroad again, which is pretty counterintuitive, pretty crazy. It doesn't make any sense, because a lot of them get in really bad situations. But I don't know, I think I heard in the Middle East they're even more abusive. So I think the Philippines banned helpers from even going there, and I think Ethiopia was another one where the kind of rampant sexual abuse and physical abuse of helpers. And so I don't know what's all going on with that. I'm sure that if a person is a domestic helper, they might be aware of all the stuff going on. Let's see if I can go down this way. I don't know if this is private property or if that is. Oh, I guess I gotta go this way. So anyways, what else can I say? Sometimes they might have a good employer. I think that's just completely random, and that's not really dependent on the city. I think I hear in general that like a helper, if they get a Westerner, like American, you know, they're usually a little bit better than a, but those are all generalizations. I mean, you could really get any kind of thing. I think I remember hearing once of well, there's a law in Hong Kong which said that you can't demand that your helper go out and clean your windows if you live, you know, up in a high rise, which almost everybody in Hong Kong does. So for a while there was like certain deaths of helpers that were being forced to go out on the ledge and clean the window from the outside, and then some of them would die. Completely crazy, completely insane. So they passed a law against it. But then I don't know, you know, I think some of the employers are good people and some of them could be abusive. So I don't know how they're able to fight it if they have an employer that won't allow them to do, won't, you know, I don't know. Some of them can't really, don't really know their rights of what they shouldn't do and what they don't have to do and things like that. Anyways, those are all the other issues. It's just all hearsay. I also, well, that's in the newspaper. So those stories in the newspaper, they're all out there in public. I also just, here's one that I knew about. So I knew of one helper who was here, and her employer was forcing her to, the employer was so cheap that they didn't have any soap or cleaning supplies, which is pretty crazy because that stuff is super cheap. But anyways, they made the helper create their own soap based out of some other thing. So they had to like create it from hand, create a soap. That was part of their job. And then they had to clean the floor with a toothbrush. So they had to go through the whole floor and just, you know, clean up every spot with a toothbrush. So I don't know, it seems like some of the helpers, some of the employers are good people, and other ones are just, you know, super abusive. And so I don't know what the recourses are if people have an abusive employer. Anyways, for all those theories, I'm sure there's lots of people, you know, there's like tens of thousands or 20s of thousands, I don't know, some large a number of people that stay here for years and are domestic helpers, and I don't know, maybe they go through a bad contract or two and then they kind of sort it out, or maybe they're just, you know, continually cycling through and going back home, saving up a little bit. I don't know how they save much, but you know, whatever they're doing, that's basically what I know about that. So if you're a person who's views the channel and you're interested in that, yeah, just try to make sure. I would suggest that person find out other legal recourses and legal ways to get out of a bad situation before they even come over. I don't even know what those are, but I'm sure there must be some legal processes just to keep yourself protected, because you don't know what kind of employer you could get. Basically, you have to live with a person for 2 years, and if they're abusive, you know, I've heard all kinds of crazy stories, but other ones have good stories, so who knows. Okay, I hope that helps somebody. just try to get legal stuff. Try to get legal information though. That's my only real advice I can say. You know, just prepare yourself in case, what's your contingency plan in case you have a bad employer. And if you get a good employer, everything's good. But you got a bad employer, you have to have a contingency plan. Okay, that's all I'll say about that.